And I'm going to share my screen briefly.
Oh, good.
So we have both our candidates here. My name is Kathy Tuffy. I'm chair of the Braintree Democratic Town Committee, and we are co-hosting today with Randolph.
I'm Jesse Gordon, chair of the Randolph Democratic Town Committee. Hi.
Hey, Jesse.
So we'd like to start out with both of you giving an opening statement to tell about why you're running and your qualifications for the job. Let's start, we'll go alphabetical. So Mike, could you begin?
Sure. First of all, thank you for this opportunity to address you, and I really appreciate it. I think this might be the last of several, maybe one more, but it's a great opportunity for obviously me and Brad to talk about what we've done and why we think that will suggest what we can hopefully do as treasurer. My name is Michael Bellotti, lifelong Democrat, up in Wollaston, section of Quincy, raising 3 children, 2 adult now in Squantum. I was sheriff for several years, interim college president at Quincy College, state legislator for 6 years originally. So I oversaw a budget of about $35 million at the sheriff's office, about $650,000 plus annually for federal grants. Some of the things I think I'm most proud of, or those things that we did at the sheriff's office that reinforce my vision for the treasurer's office, and hopefully is an indicator that I'm able to kind of create a vision and then to implement that vision and get things done that benefit all the communities in Norfolk County. One was video conferencing. As the president of the Sheriff's Association, a few years back, I was president for a couple of years, and I led the effort statewide with the courts, probation, parole, and all the sheriffs on a really a small dollar initiative originally to bring video conferencing to all the sheriff's offices so that offenders would not have to be transported as much for most of the court proceedings, unless there was evidence or witnesses or trial going on. So that saved millions. It probably saved lives during the COVID pandemic. We didn't foresee that coming, obviously, but it was really a program that when the pandemic hit, it put us in a better position statewide. And I did that with the support, obviously, of all the sheriffs, but I did provide that leadership. Secondly, we increased our senior programs since my first year election, at-risk youth programs. Also proud of our efforts around reentry. For the first time in the history of the county, and probably only 2 or 3 sheriffs in the state, we actually use operational funds to purchase and rent, I guess, recovery home beds so that folks could leave the jail still under our jurisdiction, but have a chance at stepping down and incrementally really learning how to live around issues of substance abuse, education, mental health. Also made sure that every offender left the sheriff's office signed up with Mass Health. So healthcare, recovery, housing, mental health, those are the key issues if you want to reduce recidivism. I'd like to think I was progressive in that issue. I'm fortunate enough to have the support of the 3 unions. As treasurer, I'd like to take the same approach. I'd like to transform the office, build upon what's in place. There's a great foundation. I think the last 3 treasurers have done a great job. But I'd like to bring some further innovative programs. I'd like to bring educational programs for students around debt, around student loans, around financial aid, fiscal literacy programs that target them in middle school, also get into the high schools and work one-on-one like I did. I work with all the schools as I do at my youth camp and other programs, at-risk programs, so that we can teach these young folks early on the value of a dollar and how easy it is to fall in debt, and how beneficial it is to save, even if you're not saving a lot or making a lot of money, but to save a certain percentage of your income. I'd like to bring senior programs like I did. I instituted the Are You OK program, the Triad program as sheriff, in virtually almost every community. It's a roundtable where seniors work with those folks who have a stake in what seniors do around housing, healthcare, again, sheriff's office, local police, local fire. I'd like to bring senior fraud and scam prevention programs. Also institute the first tele town hall events around, the issues and concerns regarding the pension fund. It's about $1 billion pension fund. There's unfunded liability about 68%. I understand how there's anxiety around issues of retirement and how Chapter 32, which regulates and oversees retirement in our state, how complicated it is. I mean, it sounds pretty simple. It sounds as if there are certain factors when it comes to anybody's public retirement, but those issues can become very complex if you have any type of thing that's beyond the norm. And I think if we're offering ourselves as with complete transparencies, an example that again is a tele-town hall events, to the retirees, we can alleviate some of the concerns and anxiety, but most importantly, answer their questions that impact their futures. And that's for the active and the retired participants. There's 11,000 participants, about 42 units in the county, some beyond the county that we oversee. Some of the bigger communities don't use our retirement system. Obviously would make that pitch. There are some smaller communities that don't use this that I think would have a better position to really express or advocate to the benefits if they join the retirement system in Norfolk County. I oversaw 140, I'd say about 300 employees, 320 at the most. When I left the sheriff's office, we level fund the budget my last 2 years, so we didn't increase the budget, and that's including contract increases in the employees' pay. So we were very, very careful how we spent the money, but mostly we shifted the paradigm from incarceration to reentry and intermediate sanctions. And as treasurer, I'd like to transform that office the same way I did the sheriff's office. So I think that's it for me. Hopefully I got close to 5 minutes or not beyond.
Yep, that was very good. Thank you. And Brad, would you like to make your opening statement, and then we'll since we're recording, and we'll ask questions of both candidates afterwards.
Sure, of course. Thank you very much, Kathy and Jesse, and the collaboration amongst the Democratic town committees. Good evening to Mike as well. Brad Croall, lifelong Democrat and candidate to be your Norfolk County Treasurer. The brief version on myself is I'm married to my wife, Lori. She's originally from Walpole. We live in Quincy and have 2 young children, Brian and Patrick. And, I'm a lifelong Quincy resident as well. Professionally, I've spent my entire career working in the financial services sector. So approximately 15 years. The first half, I was focused exclusively on investment management. So working with portfolios and have a rather deep understanding as to, how portfolios are constructed and managed. And for the last 7 or 8, I have specialized exclusively in retirement plans. So working with both as well as pension plans. I have I did my undergraduate study and have a bachelor's of science from the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth in, believe it or not, business information. I'm fully licensed, and I actually did a 2.5-year program at the Wharton School of Business to obtain what's called the Certified Employee Benefit Specialist designation, which is nationally or internationally recognized in my respective field. Outside of that, I also have the privilege of representing a constituency in my hometown of Quincy, where I serve as a city councilor and have done so. I'm in my 5th term, and as doing so, I've taken on multiple leadership roles. I think it was my 2nd term. I was appointed as the finance chair. And I'd like to believe that people had picked up on the fact that I had a financial services background, and essentially I was the chairperson at the time of about a $300 million budget. But what that allowed me to do was really not only gain experience, but like a firm understanding as to how municipalities function, how revenues and expenses come in and out of the coffers, for lack of a better word. But I think most importantly, how credit agencies analyze municipal finance, which is critically important. the last term, I had the opportunity to be elected unanimously by my peers and serve as council president. So I am a district councilor, which means I represent about a 15,000 person constituency, and I'm literally in the trenches with folks on issues that impact them on a daily basis. And I think having that bottoms up approach or experience in local government certainly would give me a unique vantage point if elected to serve as your county treasurer. Now, a couple things. When I contemplate the county treasurer's office, I really see an office that has a tremendous amount of opportunity to impact people's lives. And Kathy, I know you had mentioned at the outset, like, what is your why? The reason that, I'm pursuing this is because I absolutely believe that the office, has the capacity and ability to do more. And I think that in order to effectively do more, we need to, establish a baseline or connectivity with the office in the 28 cities and towns throughout Norfolk County. I've been campaigning since January, and I've come to the understanding that, the issues in Randolph are different than the issues in Braintree, which are different than the issues in Brookline. And as we communicate and sort of present ourselves as a governmental agency, as a, taxpayer-funded office, we need to be sensitive to the fact that, every city and town is different and present solutions to help the people at large. I feel like if you can get the level of communication absolutely right, that out of that together, we can develop what we're referring to as a 21st century financial literacy program that engages folks where they are, because we've taken the time to get a full understanding of that respective city and town. Now, I see working in the business that, yes, there is an absolute argument or case to be made that if you give children or people, individuals, a set of tools earlier in the decision-making process, that the outcome would probably be a little bit different. And I support that and completely understand it. I also know from my experience as a city councilor and someone who represents a very mature population that there is an extreme need for financial literacy amongst the senior populace. So really getting to an understanding and a rollout of a program that meets people of all ages, respectively where they are, is truly what excites me about this role. I'm very passionate about the business that I work in, and I want to put my professional financial service experience to work for the citizens of Norfolk County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions that they'd like to ask of Mike and Brad?
Sure, I'll do the opening question. Repeating a question from earlier in our Zoom-a-thon day, as we call it. This was asked of the other county candidates. The question is about how to avoid nepotism in general in county roles, and shifting around in roles within county government and within town government. The issue is that there's an inherent systemic, perhaps racism, with seeing the same people over and over, and how do you avoid that when trading jobs within county and town government? And I guess we should start with Mr. Croall, since we started with Mr. Bellotti first.
Yeah, sure, of course. So is this with respect to the county proper? Because you mentioned like city and town.
Well, I wanted to make it general for you. This was asked of county candidates, and of course for Mr. Bellotti, this applies for having been sheriff and shifting to the other county role. But for you, I'm trying to expand that a little to say, you would be seeing the same people in county government as in Quincy government, and what about the same people over and over issue? That's the way our questioner put it in our earlier.
Sure. Of course, absolutely. So, I mean, again, leadership starts at the top. I do believe in having a extremely noticeable, diverse workforce. And I think that in order to accomplish that, you have to have a public human resource policy. I know that as a city council, we have had conversations internally about, how do we, provide access for post-job postings to municipal roles online. I think that's a great way, to start. And again, I think Norfolk County as a collective is an extreme diverse cross-section of Massachusetts. And, we should be very conscious and cognizant of that employment practice when we hire. And that's something that, I feel would be a a good move to make that process more public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I think Brad's right. I think transparency is key. The sheriff's office, every expenditure, every hire, every salary, because it was state law, but I'm used to this, was on the open checkbook. So everything we did could be scrutinized. A lot of municipalities don't do that, and granted, we were forced to do it, but because of that, I think the Val Patrick side of that, we understood that transparency is part of the equation, and it does put more pressure on everybody. So there has to be more transparency, professionalism. All my chief of staffs, all my key folks, whether it was director of psychological services, programs, never contributed to me. Many had resumes from other areas. Many didn't live in the county. I remember one day a now retired commissioner said, geez, you hire a lot of people outside of the county. How does that help you? In my response was, well, I don't look at geography or politics. I don't even know what their party affiliation is. It's cultural. I never took contributions from my employees. I never read who my vendors were. I didn't target them to raise money. I just kind of treated the politics as if I do the politics outside, which means working with stakeholders, dealing with those issues. But the office is not politically driven. And I had some of the best staffs in the country, best trained lawyers around legal issues, because I worried about culture, but most importantly, professionalism. If you put professionalism first, I think we all agree that we can do more when it comes to diversity, whether it's city of Quincy or the county government. You can't create the perception that every job has to be filled by, or any of the jobs to be filled by somebody we know. It's better to focus on resumes and professionalism, and then that will negate and diminish greatly the politics. So when people are looking for help or a job, you focus on what's needed. And that's what we did at the sheriff's office. There's a big Asian population in Quincy, and I think Brad would agree too. There has to be more representation on the county level and the city level around that, whether the sheriff's office or the treasurer's office, so that folks see people that look like them in these positions. It brings down the walls and obstacles surrounding cultural issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, next question. I'm going to do another one.
Go ahead, and then I'll follow you.
Sure. So this is a question. I'm going to have to go out of order because Mr. Croall was already asked this question live, so I want you to be able to prepare, Mr. Bellotti.
Okay.
This is the question that was asked by a state Democratic committeeman, Kevin Coleman Joyce, at our Randolph barbecue event of Mr. Croall about abolishing the county government altogether. And since you're running for treasurer, we asked this question today also of several people. Since you're running for treasurer, what I'm wondering is the cost savings that would actually entail. Whether your opinion is to abolish it or not, I'm certainly interested, but really, would there be a cost savings? And, did Middlesex County, for example, when they abolished it, along with the other half of the counties that did so 20 years ago, did they save money in the end by rolling those functions into state government? Mr. Croall first, so Mr. Bellotti, you can prepare.
Sure. So I don't believe that I could actually quantify the ultimate cost savings. I mean, if we thought about, $31 million budget, I'm sure that there's money to, be saved. I know that throughout the campaign, there's been some talk around regionalization. So partnering with other counties to create economies of scale that would help us as we, go through basically our purchasing for the county. I think that's a cost savings you could do. And I think it would work well if county government, as it is today, still exists. And as I shared at the barbecue, the reality of the situation is county government is here today. It is a $31 million decentralized operation that, I feel needs to be able to articulate itself quite finely to the taxpayers who fund it. So I do think, whether or not, we could argue, should county government stay, should it go? It is here, but having somebody in the role as treasurer and really across the board as electeds, talking and finding solutions to create those price efficiencies, I think can articulate into cost savings for taxpayers today with county government in existence. I do.
Thank you. Mr. Bellotti?
Yeah, I think, particularly in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have to justify all costs in government, and that includes county. And it's a going question. And as we know, in other states, county government provides some serious, more regionalized, impactful services. Not that we're ever going to be Broward County in Florida in terms of budgets and what we provide. There's a greater dependence. But the justification has to be that from the perspective of the municipalities, you know, they're all contributing their amount. And do they feel they're getting enough? And I think that's an ongoing question. I think that the amounts that they contribute aren't so prohibitive that, at least at this point, they feel that way. The pension fund's never going away. You know, that will always have to be managed. And then it's a question of the other, like the Aggie School or the golf course or the other services provided by the registry of deeds or probate. But we have to look at visualization. As sheriff, I try to create programs that save communities money. And that was around community services. When the offenders came in, we rebuilt Holbrook Town Hall. We rebuilt Braintree Town Hall. And we saved them probably combined over $1 million easily. The youth camp. I don't think any community really wants to do their own youth camp. And granted, I wasn't able to provide that youth opportunity to everyone in the county, but at least down the Holbrook, Braintree, Quincy portion of the county, we provided a youth camp that maybe no other municipality did. So we gave thousands of kids an opportunity to learn about decision-making between the age of 10 and 14. Police and K-9. I expanded the role of the K-9 officers at the sheriff's office so that the smaller communities didn't have to have a K-9 officer because they just didn't have the economy of scales or the need for a full-time officer. The lockup at the jail. Again, the smaller communities. So Quincy, Weymouth, maybe Brookline, some of the bigger communities, we work closely with them. But I think the smaller towns looked towards us for services because they did not have the money in their budget. And to justify our existence on the county level, we're going to have to create programs that people see. Again, there's an economy of scales, and we're saving them individually, you know, tens or $100,000 for an expense that, for us, because it's centralized, is much smaller than when you extend it out.
Thank you, Mr. Bellotti. Kathy, I think you were ready next.
Yep, I have a couple of questions. First, I realize that this may or may not, well, it's not really a county issue, but Weymouth has spent over $1 million fighting the compressor station. Quincy has spent an enormous amount of money fighting the Weymouth compressor station, and Braintree has chipped in for the lawyers' fees to fight it as well. Can you explain your position on the Weymouth compressor station, and is there any role that the county could play in the siting of compressor stations and pipelines in Norfolk County? So I would go to Mr. Bellotti first.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, and I know Brad worked closely on that issue, and there were a lot of issues that I worked on that he probably had the opportunity also. My role as sheriff and college president didn't bring me to a position on that, and I'd have to think about it. And I'm not ducking the issue. I think the neighborhoods, if they didn't want it, as an elected official, I know there were good reasons for it, and I would probably have to represent my neighborhoods. And I know Quincy, I know the point in that side of Quincy had an issue with it, and I know that folks in Braintree and Weymouth had an issue with it. So, I would always advocate for my constituency if something adversely affected them. I think as county government, we could just provide them with not legal advice necessarily, not facts around traffic, or maybe a traffic study, maybe an environmental study, but there were better folks to do it with great expertise. But to the extent that we have services in be able to bring something to the table, I would try to do that. Now, as an elected official, I'm not opposed to using political capital to weigh in on issues like that. And it seems to me, with an issue like that, I would find myself siding with the neighborhood, because you don't want to see any neighborhood or any community lose their property values or take the brunt of these type of services because other neighborhoods or other towns, don't want to do it. And it seems like Weymouth sometimes it has a higher level of expectation and pressure to take these type of projects when other towns. So even though it's a local issue, my tendency over the years has been to advocate for the average citizen. So I would think that is something I look at closely. And if there's some benefit or study or ways we could help them from a county level, I think we would. And that's all about increasing our role too.
Okay, and Brad, can you explain, is there any role, and I know you could talk a little bit about the compressor station, but is there any role that county government could play in assisting the communities that have been hard hit in these with legal fees fighting this compressor station?
So yes, without sort of rehashing the last 5.5 years, to Mike's point, yeah, I represent the district that, many would say is in, for lack of a better word, the impact zone, right? I'm on the other side of the Fall River Bridge and the entry point into the city of Quincy. But there's also, other cities and towns that are impacted as well, and other cross sections of the city of Quincy, like Germantown and Housnack, and obviously, Weymouth and Braintree. And as a city councilor, I was able to, effectively advocate in the sense of the broader sense of bringing resources to the fight. City of Quincy, subsidizes a portion of the nonprofit, the acronym is FRAX organization, subsidizing the legal costs for that particular organization to, fight where we're at right now, which is the permits in court. As far as county government or any government for that matter, like I've just always felt as an elected official, again, you need to meet people where they're at, and every issue is an issue for an elected official. So as a county representative, yes, of course, I think you have a obligation to, get involved with 28 cities and towns, issues that affect them in the immediate. With respect to, does the county have, a financial payment, I think is where you're going with that, Kathy, to further subsidize the, the cost to shoot down the compressor station. I don't know if they have almost, like a sidecar legal appropriation. I don't know that, but, as Norfolk County Treasurer, and like I said, as any elected official, I think, probably in a position to do, you would try to get creative. If it's an issue that really negatively impacts people that you represent, regardless of the office that you hold, I really do. I think you have a strong obligation to get creative and reach out to alternative stakeholders, because the reality is this, we could talk about the Weymouth compressor station as something that is negative for Quincy, Braintree, and Weymouth. I think we could talk about the compressor station in general that is, negative to Massachusetts as a whole. There's other cities and towns in Norfolk County right now that are having various, legal battles with gas companies, with, compressor sightings. We could talk about this as a regional issue. So this goes way beyond just, the tri-town, for lack of a better word, in Norfolk County. And I think as as a elected official, you need to advocate. And I feel like I've done that with some success, not just on this issue, but other issues in general as a city councilor in my current role. And I would continue to do so.
Thank you. I have one last question of both candidates. So Brad, you're currently a city councilor, and Mike, you were formerly the Norfolk County Sheriff. Brad, can you tell the voters whether you plan to complete your term as city councilor? And Mike, could you explain why you left your position as Norfolk County Sheriff before your term ended? So go ahead, Brad. Are you planning to stay as Norfolk, as a city councilor in Quincy if you're elected?
Approximately a year ago, I took an oath of office, and that oath of office entailed a 2-year term. So if elected as Norfolk County Treasurer, my intention would be to fulfill my term, mainly because we have one particular project, which is the creation of a satellite senior center that has extreme meaning to the people that I represent at this side of the city. And it's an item that I've been working on tirelessly for the last 3 years, and we have the funding. And, you know, I feel it's something that I need to do for the people that I represent to make sure that project gets completed. So the short answer is yes. If elected, I would have approximately 1 year left in the term to fulfill up. That would be my intention.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. That's a good question, because I've had a couple jobs in the past couple of years. And so the sheriff's office, after 20 years, I felt like I did everything that I set out to do. And I did plan on finishing my term. And then there was an opportunity. I was on the Quincy College board. I'd been supportive of the college. There's 12 in my family, my mother, my father. My mother went to Quincy College. Many went to Quincy College. And I got that opportunity, you know, with the support of the mayor and the board, to be the interim president. And, you know, we like to think we stabilized the budget. The budget, there was, within 6 months of there was a $4 million shortfall because of enrollment. And I was able to convince the city, but really the mayor, to provide $2.2 million in healthcare costs. So, because the city's always been very supportive, and it is a city department in some fashion, and the mayor and the city understands that it's a very vital, integral part of Quincy. So, and we also brought back the nursing program. And I had an opportunity to work in addiction, to help somebody out who I know in the private sector. And when this opportunity came up to run for treasurer, again, in light of the uncertain times ahead, I felt like I had proven county leadership, that folks who could have confidence in, you know, the fact that I transformed the sheriff's office, again, my opinion, you know, would innovate very progressive programs, in that they would know that I would hit the ground running in general, and that knowing the stakeholders, being through 2 economic downturns as sheriff, and working with the legislature and Congress, folks like Maura Healey, the AG, who and Martha Coakley prefer her on reentry. I was fortunate a couple of days ago to get the endorsement of Maura Healey, who I've known for years. So, yeah, I left the sheriff's office after 20 years. I did plan on staying the full term. There was an opportunity at the college to be helpful to the city and you know, take advantage of a lot of relationships, and hopefully raise the image of the college and instill some confidence in the short term before they got a great college president, Rick Christopher.
Thank you. Should we do closing statements, Jesse?
We have a question from Toby Schwartz and Chris Spears. I'm going to unmute. Oops. I think you're unmuted.
Okay.
Go ahead, Toby.
Randolph pays the county $7.5 million, at least that's what the town budget says, to the county. Where does it go? And what services do we get for all that exorbitant amount that we have to pay?
We've been discussing this as a Democratic Town Committee about, we don't quite follow the money too well. It says in our budget 7.5 million to state and county, but your budget is 35. I thought I heard.
Yeah, but 31, 32 million.
So what part of that 7.5 goes to the budget that you control, and what services are there in that? Because we understand it's not the sheriff's office, it's not the jail, it's not the golf course, it's not several things. It's not Norfolk Aggie. So what are the services?
Okay, so 7.5 million. The Norfolk Aggie School is about 14 million, and the overall budget is about 32 million, about 140 employees. So I'm not sure exactly what that line item represents in your budget, but the pension's about $1 billion. and it's funded from three sources: members' contribution, employer contribution, and of course, the investments and the management of that, that financial component. So the employer contribution probably, I'm guessing, makes up a good part of that. So what your town is paying goes towards the pension fund. So it's pretty self-evident what you receive from that. But I'd like to, that's a good question, Toby. I'd like to break that down more specifically. But generally speaking, you have active and retired members in the town is also responsible for a portion of that. They decide to participate in the pension fund. If they didn't, they would create their own pension fund or participate in a different pension fund or pension system, I'm sorry, and that money would probably equally just be transferred. What do you get? The budget for the treasurer's office is around $1 million. I don't have the exact number, about $1 million. And what you're getting is this: we support the other departments in county government, commissioners, probate, registrar's office, and we support that by doing the accounting and the bookkeeping and working with them closely around creative fiscal solutions in tough times. And for services, again, I mean, I know you're talking about the treasurer's office, but we are connected to all those other agencies and departments like the Aggie School. I'm not sure how many students you have going to the Aggie School. And I'm not sure how many folks take advantage of the golf course. We're also doing maintenance for the court systems. So even though that is not a capital asset, it's a state asset, there are certain things that we fund in terms of the maintenance, custodian work, and others. So it's integral. It may not seem like a direct impact, but most of that money is the employer contribution for the pension fund. And you could decide not to participate, like a number of communities in the pension, or the retirement system, and that money would just go over to another retirement system. That obligation isn't going away. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Croall?
Thank you for the question, Toby. The 7.5, I'm not as familiar with your budget proper, but what I can share with you is that every time, every city and town that opts into the Norfolk County pension system has both an employer and an employee contribution. I could tell you that you're in Randolph, you said?
Yes.
For Randolph, it's about $5.5 million. So there's a couple things going on here. When you contemplate county government, right, you have basically the cities and towns that are part of Norfolk County. So regardless of whether or not you're in the pension fund, basically your property value, there's a numeric calculation that is based on property value. And from that becomes basically a flow of cash, for lack of a better word, that helps subsidize the $31 million budget for the county. That's outside of the treasurer's office. Now, to Mike's point, the difference is going to be for Randolph, you're in the pension fund. So I would guess that a vast majority of that is comprised of both the employer and the employee responsibility or contribution to pay your share to be in the pension fund. The difference, my assumption would be, I don't have the numbers in front of me, is what you're assessed in terms of your property. So the question really becomes, and I think it's a great one, like, what are you getting? What are you getting as a city or town, whether you're in or not in the pension fund? And I think that is something that should absolutely be contemplated in this election. We've been very clear in terms of establishing an objective and what I hope, if given the opportunity to serve you, to accomplish. And the one thing that I absolutely believe that will take this treasurer's office to the next level is having that 21st century financial literacy program built by the people of Norfolk County through a committee or a working group, have it live in that office and find itself out to the 28 cities and towns. And I feel that if we do that in a manner that I believe we can, working together, that there will be no question in terms of any city or town when they think about the treasurer's office with respect to what am I getting? The short answer is you're getting professional management through an investment portfolio for the folks who are in the system, but alternatively, as a taxpayer, what are you getting? And I feel that a financial literacy program would create that level of connectivity for that office. Great question.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Chris Spears has a question, also a member of Randolph Committee. Chris, if you're ready, I think you have to unmute. Oh, I see you did.
Okay, so our question is, what steps would you take to make the budget more transparent? When we're looking into expenses, we can barely find the budget, much less compare expenses. That's all.
Me or Brad first? Me? Okay. So again, I grew up in a world the last 10 years where our budget process was very open through testifying with Ways and Means. It was a public document, and everything we did was on open checkbook. Again, I didn't invent that wheel, but I understand the benefit of the culture shift when you do that the taxpayer knows they can look at anything, buying basketballs for the offenders, a reentry program. If you're hiring a consultant to look at something, it's all there. So the transparency, I'd bring the same transparency. I think we're going to do more in those areas of government where it's not legally or statutorily mandated. So that's number one, is we would make sure the budget was online, newsletters for the retirees, transparency online, a teletown hall where people can ask real questions and you have to answer them, just like these type of Zoom forums. There's no ducking them. And the COVID, the irony is that there is less retail politics, but you really can't avoid the number of forums like this, because folks can get together easily with technology. So we got to bring technology in the same way. And I think we've been a little bit behind on the county level, not to stress us. And then I've been through a couple economic downturns, and I understand. Okay. Is that it?
Thank you, Mr. Bellotti. Go ahead. If you're not finished, go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm finished. I'll save the comments for my closing. The next.
Thank you. Mr. Croall?
Thank you. So the question becomes around transparency. And, the good news with everything is we live in a world that is hyper-connected, right, through some of the technological efficiencies that we have. Up into, I believe it's this year, it has been a challenge to access some of the budgetary matters. And again, I've always been pretty consistent as a city councilor that, taxpayers should be able to see what's going on and then essentially quantify what is going on with respect to government. I've always looked at elections as a performance evaluation, and I think my own opinion that the county government in general needs a boost in the arm and sort of be brought more online and accessible to folks. I think we do this a lot through being out there, engaging with people, and developing programs that make sense and impact people's lives. To this question, like if you were having struggles, trying to access some of the documents, so was I. And as treasurer, I feel like that's an area that we can improve on. We can improve upon that with internal conversation, cooperation, and working together. Because again, I really do go back to this because in my heart of hearts, I believe it. Like the taxpayers own this office; they should have access to the information. So let's put technology to work in everybody's best interest. That would be my my stance, or sort of my path forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good question.
Should we go to closing statements, Jesse?
Yes, I think so. Unless there's another question, I think we're ready for closing statements. Yeah.
Okay, so Brad, will you give your closing statement first, and please give your contact information, your website and such, so people will be able to contact you.
Well, thank you again for the Democratic Town Committee Collaborative for putting this session together. Again, my name is Brad Croall. I'm seeking the office of Norfolk County Treasurer, and I truly believe that we're in a very interesting environment where State revenues are going to be way off. Market performance is certainly unpredictable. And having an individual in the seat of Norfolk County Treasurer that has a professional financial services experience, I believe at this inflection point is absolutely critical. As I said, I specialize in this field. This is what I do for work. I've tried to be very clear in terms of the objectives or the agenda, if given the opportunity to serve with people, so that you can measure me, because I do. Again, I believe elections are they're performance evaluations. This is a 6-year term, so the vote that hopefully you didn't already make, but maybe making, is essentially you're electing somebody to serve you for 6 years. I do believe that I have the the energy, the excitement, the understanding and integrity to not only do the job, but to do the job well in a fashion that really brings this office into the 21st century. I do respectfully ask for your vote on or before. It's so crazy to say that, but on or before September 1st. And I always close out by saying, if you could kindly remember that when you go to the poll, vote for Croall, Norfolk County Treasurer. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Brad. Mike, would you like to make your closing statement?
How long is the closing statement? 1 minute, 2 minutes? I don't even know.
Well, I think we would like to be done by 5:45, so give about 2 minutes.
Okay, good.
Good.
Okay. First of all, to all your respected town committees and the collaborative, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's important, and it's a chance for us. I honestly think there are two good candidates running for this office, and I think we bring a lot of the same skills and a lot of different skills. And clearly, Brad's going to emphasize his skill set, and I think I bring a skill set that I can point at 20 years in government. And also the college. I've been through a few economic downturns. These are going to be very difficult times, regardless of what the stock market is doing now. We know that we're headed for some difficult times with tax collections and probably with the economy, unfortunately. There's going to be a $6 to $8 billion hole in the state budget unless the federal government bails them out. It's going to trickle all the way down to every county and municipal level. At the Quincy College, I alluded to earlier, I found myself with a $4 million budget because of a major decrease in enrollment. Because when the nursing program collapsed, not only did we lose millions and millions of dollars because of that, we lost millions of dollars for a lot of those kids that went to the college hoping to get into the nursing program. We lost a big piece. And we convinced the city that their responsibility as an employer was to contribute, not to the pension system, but to the health care and direct costs. And also, I was able to find $2 million by not filling, I didn't lay anybody off, but by not filling any positions. So in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, when enrollment dropped in a way that, we saw it coming, but even greater than we expected, we were able to stabilize the budget and actually put more money in the rainy day fund. In the sheriff's office, my last 2 years there, I actually reduced the budget by 1% my last fiscal year, and I level funded the year before, while also growing initiatives and programs. So I bring that experience. Again, I like to think that, a lot of folks attached by the sheriff's office with youth programs, senior programs, reentry, a lot of collaborations with nonprofits, government agencies, private sector over 20 years. I like to think people don't ask as much, what is it the sheriff does? And I really believe if I take that same approach and experience to the county treasurer's office, people will ask less, what is it the treasurer does and why are they important to us? And that's my goal. That's why I'm running. Thank you. And please vote for, as Brad said before, or on September 1st for Mike Bellotti. Or consider Mike Bellotti.
So thank you both very much. There are some options for, as you all know, this year, early voting started today and extends through Friday the 28th. There are election drop boxes at town halls and city halls. I know Braintree has one in the parking lot. Quincy's is, I believe, right inside Quincy City Hall. Weymouth is outside town hall. So if you have a mail-in ballot, because of the uncertainty with the mail system, I believe Secretary Galvin is saying mail it very early or use the election drop box. There is election day voting on September 1st, of course, And Secretary of State has a site which I'll put up where you can check to see if your ballot has been accepted or has been received and accepted. So I voted early and mailed mine in. I was anxious about the Postal Service, but I use this. I saw that the Braintree Town Clerk had received it and accepted it. So that provides some reassurance if you're anxious about whether your vote's going to count. So I urge you all to vote, and I thank you all for coming, and this concludes our candidate Zoom-a-thon for the day.
Thank you.
And we'll post them everywhere we can very quickly, because I know people are early voting, but I certainly was going to wait for the Zoom-a-thon before I voted. So.
Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of the Randolph Dems, the Braintree Dems, the Holbrook Dems, and the people of the county. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.